Today we're going to talk about my Hobart Handler 140 welder. I bought about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago now. Yeah, I think I got it in the summer of 2018. I got it a year ago. Just over a year ago. This is like I said, a Hobart 140. It runs off of 110 household electricity. And the reason I bought this one instead of something bigger was the place that I worked at before, or the place I lived at before, not work. The place I lived at before, I did not have 220 set up. When I moved here, I have this 2-bay garage and it's got 220 hooked up in it. So this works for now, but we might be upgrading to a bigger machine in the future. Out of the box, this thing comes set up for flux core. Of course, I went ahead and got the back here. You can see a tank back here with a regulator. I got this set up with the 25-75% mix of gas. When you buy yours, if you get yours, more than likely, I think everyone comes with a flux core wire, 0.300 or I can't even talk, 0.30 flux core wire, and you should also have a tip. Pretty much everything set up to weld. This is the clamp that comes with it. A lot of people complain about this clamp. Whatever, works for me. I did end up buying one of these to hook up to it, but I just haven't hooked it up yet. Let me go over a couple things real quick, then we're going to weld some steel and see how this works. You're going to open the door on the side. Like I said, inside here I got my solid wire, I got my gas mix, I got everything set up. On the inside you're going to see a chart. It's got all your different materials, the kind of wire, the kind of gas, and the thickness of the materials over here. Over here, it's going to be the flux core electro negative setup and the solid wire electro positive setup. Like I said, it comes with flux core, so it should have this setup. Double check it. I've heard people buy them and they had the flux core wire, but it was set up for solid wire. They had them flipped. And when they try to weld, it didn't weld. It's not going to weld. So just double check that. It's real easy to change, but it should be set up for the flux core. If you're going solid wire, then you got to flip them, hook up your gas, your wire, and you should be good to go. I got 0.35 wire and the 75%, 25% gas mix, like I said before. On here, it's going to go, like for me, you got the gas mix, you got the 35 wire, and you got the thickness of steel. This machine is real simple to use. I would take the 35 line, followed over to say 16 gauge. It's going to give me two numbers, a 3 and a 30. If I come to the front of my machine, you're going to have two knobs. You're going to have a knob on the bottom that goes between 1 and 5. You're going to have a knob on the top that goes between 10 and 80. Okay? The one on the top is just a smooth knob like that, and the one on the bottom actually clicks. You can hear it clicking into place. So, my numbers for that kind of steel and my setup would be 3. I click that over to 3. And 35, I believe. So I'd take that one, move it halfway between 30 and 40. Plug it in, hook up my ground, and you are good to weld. And it's usually dead on. You might have to fine adjust it. From this, you might turn the wire speed up a little bit. The top one's the wire speed. Let me get back here and explain this. The top one is the wire speed, and the bottom one is, I guess you'd consider that the amps. So the thickness of the metal, and the more amps you're going to need, the thicker the metal. Stuff like that. You might come through and leave it at 3 and adjust it up to 40. You might come through and put it at 4 and turn it down to 30, or leave it at 35, or you might move it up. It depends. You're just going to work with it. For me, I usually put it where it calls for it, and it's usually dead on. I don't have no problems. You can see here, I've got a piece of steel. I got a couple pieces of steel. I got a piece of square tube. I've got a piece of flat stock. And I actually got a horseshoe, which is also made of steel. This is, hold on, what is this? 16 gauge. This is pretty thin stuff. 16 gauge, okay? This is 1/8 inch flat, and this horseshoe is 1/4 inch thick. They say this welder can weld up to 1/4 inch on a single pass. So what we're going to do is we're going to test weld some thin stuff, some 1/8 inch, which would be kind of medium, and then 1/4 inch, which is some thick stuff. So let me get my welder pushed out of the way. Let me get a couple pieces of this stuff cut up. We're going to set it up. We're going to lay some beads on this thing and take a look how this welder performs. The first thing we're going to weld is this 16 gauge square tube. I got a piece on top. I got a piece laying long ways. I got a magnet holding it in place where I want it to go at. So I got my welder set on 3 and 35 like the diagram calls for. And I'm going to just take a quick second and lay a bead on this piece here just to see how it's running, just to make sure I don't need to fine adjust it, which I shouldn't have to. Let me lay a quick bead on there. Okay, so I'm going to turn the wire speed down just a little bit to about 32. Alright, so it burnt through at the end. I held it too long and ended up burning the hole through it, so I didn't move the bead quick enough, but I think that's pretty good. Let me go ahead and lay a bead on this one here and we'll see what she looks like. That is what that looks like. Not the greatest bead. Kind of moved it quick. I was afraid of it burning through. I'm going to go ahead and weld the back side and go. We're going to go a little bit slower than I went on the front side and see what we can do. The settings are stayed the same. I got it at 30. Let me put it at 30, 35, just like I called for. And let me go ahead and weld that one and see what that one looks like. My second weld right there. At the first you seen it messed up a little bit. The rest of it doesn't look real bad. I slowed it down. That's like I said right up here where that it spit it. I was too far away and then I started welding, got it closer. So that's that. Pretty good looking welds except for that screw up. I'm going to go ahead and weld this side and this side with the settings at 3 and 35, and then we'll take a look at those two also. I will say this, they'll be laughing at my welds, but these things look like crap. On a short piece like this, it's hard to really get anything going through, but we'll look at them anyways. It's a learning experience. That looks like crap. And with it being so thin, I'm just thinking it ended up melting through, and I had to come back and try to fix it. This one here, also. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it down to 2 once, and I'm just going to weld a straight bead and see if we can get any better results with that. Let me turn this thing down to 2. We're going to keep it at 35, and let's see what we can do with that. I'll tell you what, we got another piece of steel here. We'll go ahead and set that thing up on here. We turned it down to 2. I'll see if it might be too cold. We'll see what it does. Let's see what happens. Not much better. Not much better. And turn down to 2, I think is just too cold. And that's just too cold there. On 2 it's too cold. And on 3 you just got to move it really quick or it ends up burning through. I come through on the front side here and you can see where it burnt through. This is really thin stuff, burns through really easy. We jumped it up to the 1/8 inch steel, and this is going to be a lot harder to burn through, so I think we're going to get a lot better results than this stuff here. This stuff is just super thin and it doesn't take much to blow through it. So I think a little bit more practice with that, I'd have that down. We got some 1/8 inch set up here. I had to turn my knob from a 3 to a 4, and the wire speed stayed the same at 35. So let's weld this up and see what we got. So there is my 1/8 inch weld. That looks pretty freaking good. So anyways, this is 1/8 inch. Let me weld the other side. It sounds a lot better because I actually turned the gas on this time. I didn't have the gas on when I was welding all these things together, and that didn't help any. So let me put another bead on this side and see what this looks like. And that is the other side there. Again, a really nice bead. So now I want to try something. I haven't tried this too much. We're going to do a vertical weld. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top and weld to the bottom. So that's a weld that started at the top up here, and I just weaved it the whole way down to the bottom right there. So that turned out pretty good. We're going to finish up here, and what I want to do is I want to come back to this piece here. Like I said before, I forgot to turn my gas on when I did all these welds. I'm surprised they turned out as good as they did. That's pretty good for no freaking gas. I got a spot here that needs welded, so I'm going to go ahead and weld that. I've set my settings back to 3 and 35 on my welder. And I'm going to go ahead and weld that and see if it works a lot better now that I got the gas on. I can't imagine it going any worse. So here's my first weld here, and that looks a lot better with the gas. I did burn through it, so it's still real easy to burn through. The last thing we got is a horseshoe, and I don't got nothing to weld it to. So what I'm going to do is it's got this little like groove in it, and I'll just fill that full of weld and see if we can get a nice looking bead. Let me set up my welder to 1/4 inch, and we'll see what we can do with that horseshoe. So on this horseshoe, we've got the welder set, the wire speed set at 45, and we've got the amps set at 5, the highest setting we can get on this thing. That did really well for 1/4 inch. And there is that bead from there to there. Now that's just like a flat fillet weld, but it actually laid a pretty nice bead in there for 1/4 inch. So I don't think it has a problem welding 1/4 inch. Okay guys, so that is my 1 year review of my Hobart handler 140. We did some thin stuff that ended up burning through. We had the gas shut off on the beginning. It happens. We got the gas turned back on. It still burns through really easy, but ended up being a lot better. The 1/8 inch stuff laid down some really nice beads, And then this 1/4 inch stuff, I never even welded anything thicker than maybe 3/16, and I got this 1/4 inch horseshoe, ground it down, or flap biscuit, got it cleaned up, and laid a really nice bead on that horseshoe. I'm really surprised. So the Hobart Handler 140, there's a link in the description. Click that link. You can go over there, pick it up, help me out here. I'll get a little bit of commission off that sale. Also, go into the comment section, tell me what you think. Like this video, share this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another one.